Okay, for those who don't know me, I'm Howard Thomas, not that that's important, but that's my name. You know Alan Caffrey, most of you will know Alan Caffrey, he's a legend, isn't he? And Alan Humphreys, RCT, is helping me with recording the session, because some people asked who couldn't come, some from overseas even, could it be recorded, so it is being recorded. When Helen asked me to look at this, it was a case of, yes, it's the 130-year commemoration of the disaster. That's what this week is all about. And I'm all to recognise that. But I was asked to look at it more broadly. Look at the history in a broader context, if you like. Try and find stuff beforehand and other aspects of social history just beyond the colliery and the mine itself, which is what I've tried to do here. So I hope, bear with me, and I hope you find it interesting. The village obviously is here because of the colliery, we know that. But I tried to paint the picture more broadly. Those of you who've suffered my talks in other things, I have a few different talks, will not be surprised that there's some musical stuff in amongst it, because I love music, but I haven't overloaded it. I got a bit at the beginning. The colliery section in the middle has got a background of music, which I think is appropriate, and there's one at the end. So it's kind of bookends of the talk. But I love to have music going along with pictures. There's pictures, lots of pictures, they're worth 1,000 words. There's quite a few bits of text as well. But the music gives you a break from me prattling on, and I hope you find that interesting. So the first bit of music is just to get you in the mood. Not as you were in the mood last night, those of you who were there. I can only imagine the mood was fantastic. A bit like the last night of the proms. And all the wines and the drinking and whatever. I'm sure there wasn't any of that. But anyway, I'm sure you enjoyed it. But here we go, and let's see if we can make it happen. This picture is a favourite picture of mine, only because it's a recent one, it's certainly not way back. It's a couple of years ago, taken from the mountainside over here, which is where I spend most of my time. And it was obviously a sunset, and it's panorama view, Ponty up to Abercunham, if you like, sweeping from the mountain. I like the picture, so I stuck it there anyway. And I'm going to play the Collier's Anthem for you now, just to that. I thought that was a good place to start.
Working and I've been down on the ground.
Very good. Marvellous. Okay. Hope you can read this. When I was looking into this, clearly there's not a lot of prehistory in a way, because there wasn't a lot around here, similar to most of the other valleys. They were rural places, just a few farmsteads and things like that. The roads were mountain roads largely, which interested me. They just literally tracks across mountains. There was tolls, turnpike roads, people paying on turnpike roads with private companies managing them. But basically they were being avoided when you went over the mountains. And then down alongside here, Cilfynydd hillside had various quarries and indeed some mining, coal mining going on. And the stone there largely used for the old bridge in 1756, William Edwards. So a lot was going on in Cilfynydd just down here as well. I've set it out to try and get a sort of structure to this, but I like to live things through structure. When I'm not structured, I fall apart, which is most days. So beginning with rural tranquility, salmon and trout. This is like George Borrow's Wild Wales, I guess. It's a bit like that. I imagine it is anyway, because it was a bit like that. And it had the way station, the Cwm stables, the blacksmiths at the lower end. So you had the Cilfynydd Inn, You had the stables, where they would stable horses with the wagons and the canal boats. We'll talk about that in a minute. Blacksmiths down at the bottom end there, quarry. And then came Klondike, of course, the black gold, which was the call of the late 19th century. Booming immigration, we'll see that in a second. People just coming from everywhere. Cilfynydd itself emerging. Tragedies and disease, I'll give you some personal stuff on that in a second, but in the world. And the natural disaster itself, which of course we know about. Following on from that, we have World War I, and I often fascinated by the hardships people had to go through years ago. We don't realise how fortunate we've been in many ways. The Great Depression of the 1920s, World War II, evacuees. I've got stories of evacuees into Cilfynydd locally, not just into other parts of Wales, but people here. Rationing, of course, up to about 53, 54, there was still rationing going on. Which is, for me, it was, I was a little lad then. The bustling village, which of course it was very much through much of the 20th century. Floods, we had floods and the smallpox of 62, I think early 62, which was quite a nasty epidemic back then. I had chicken pox and I was sure I had smallpox. I was desperately sad and very frightened. I can well remember. It was tragic, that in its own way. The decline then, of course, was the end of the colliery really. Commuter land is what it is today. I would guess it's commuter land into Cardiff. I dare say I better mention Cardiff and so on. As a rugby man, I don't like doing that. And the new identity is force of determination. So we now have to set our own identity, and I think that's important for us to go forward. When I was doing this talk, and I've done it before, and I have changed it and updated it a bit, which every day is a school day for me, I was aware that some people here will know a lot more than I do. So please share that afterwards, for you will know a lot more than I do. But equally, other people, it'll be new to a lot of them. And especially when I speak to people who've not got any experience, and that's nice to know as well. So there we go. So some of these things which hit me when I looked at them, I thought, well, blimey, what's happening here? Now I know some of these are actually on exhibits here. I had a good look around Tuesday and it's a brilliant exhibition. I thought it was tremendous, so well put together. On the left, you've got 1875. This is Cilfynydd in 1875. On the right is 1900. And there's your 10 terrace streets, basically, pretty much. And the core of the village is all there. And that's in 25 years. Staggering when you think about that. Without JCBs and without all the fancy gear of today. What's been done is just astonishing. It's what people can do when they need to do. We see some jobs that seem to take a while, and people sometimes wonder what's happening, what they're doing. And we saw this happening way back when. Brilliant. I've then got a couple of older pictures sitting along here. This is just a nice picture I saw, which is, I think about 1910, something like that, of Cilfynydd. And I just like it. I think some things I just like, some things I don't. Fortunately, most things I do. Well, this is an early one again, isn't it? This is, I don't remember the feeder. Some of you, I think, do. It's the feeder alongside the Cwm into the canal from the Cwm. And it's got little lads fishing there. I just like the picture. To me, it says so much. I like tranquility, I like peace and quiet. I'm not much of a fisherman, but I just get the feel for it. So initially then it's a small hamlet, and it was called Sgwrs, which I dare say most of you know, so forgive me for repeating the obvious. The farm was Sgwrs farm, which is basically where the colliery was sunk, and Sgwrs. 1767, we had the Cilfynydd Road built by the Merthyr ironmasters. Merthyr ironmasters had come from Shropshire and various other places, Crauchetes, the guests and so on. And they made a lot of money up there, and they had to move things into Cardiff to the docks, to the coast. in Cilfynydd then, in 1770, a coaching in for the horse-drawn wagons. The wagon would pull about, I don't know, from what I understand, about 2 ton it would take. In 1794, the Glamorganshire Canal completed. And that was the instigation of the iron masters of Merthyr. They wanted a better way of getting stuff to Cardiff. And that would take, the canal narrow boat would take about 24 ton. So you'd immediately see that one canal was in a delay. 10 times what a wagon would do. So that was the kind of development, commercial development, as you'd expect, driven by the wealthy iron masters of the time in the late 18th century. In 1830, we had about 200 boats on the canal. So it's quite a busy thing going on, you know. Nowadays, it's just leisurees going along and enjoying yourselves. This was busy transporting all manner of goods. And it was drawn, obviously, by horses. Taff Vale Railway in 1841 was opened, and the whole purpose of that was to speed the movement of iron. So all of this was about transporting things more quickly. In 1850, thereabouts, from what I can see, Fireclay mined the hillside behind Cilfynydd for the brickworks behind Mary Street. I think I got broadly my facts right, most of them right, and they not be 100%. But I'm definitely not 100%, I can assure you. But there was certainly Fireclay there, and that was useful for the bricks that we see in many of the houses and so forth. And there were trial coal levels behind Wood Street and in the forestry below Pantee Farm. As I mentioned, there were lots of coal colliery levels around Cilfynydd Mine and around all the valleys here throughout much of the 19th century. You know, things were going on for a long time. And I believe, from what I can see, and it just so you know, 12, 1300 or something, we're talking about coal mining in Cilfynydd and different places around here. There's things going on. People are looking for things in the ground and whatever they could find. Some things have never changed, I guess. Population, 1839, 24 people. 5 farms, one of which is my family farm, if you like. 1 cottage and a coaching inn, which is the Cilfynydd Inn, 1839. 1881, 104 people. Not a huge increase, I guess. But there are 23 properties, the 5 farms, 1 inn, 3 Cwm cottages, which were down by the rugby club, 1 on Queen Square, 8 on the main road below the bottom of today's Richard Street, which is where the health centre, doctors was, and then 4 further along, right at the bottom opposite the Trojan garage, including Quarry House. Basically, that was what was there in 1881. In 1881, we had more than 50% of the people were from all over. I mentioned the immigration earlier. People are just coming in from everywhere. It was a place to be, you know. Cilfynydd still is to me. This is why I'm talking to you now. It's in my heart, and that's the place to be. It's a strong Welsh language and culture. It was actually a very strong Welsh language then. Yes, there were people that come from elsewhere, but quite a strong, as with much of this, Wales, Welsh language was quite prevalent. The Albion Colliery era, I would say, would likely to be, but I don't, there might have been something here by now. I don't know what would have been here by now, but we certainly wouldn't have seen a village like we know now, as we know it now. The Albion Colliery created the village, and all the pubs, and clubs, chapels, churches, school, retail outlets, you know, you name it. The Albion Colliery was the start of it, which is why I think it's important to commemorate the 130th year disaster and so on. Right, in 1887, production actually starts. And in 1887 also, with the children that we have now, as families are here, we had Mariah Vestry School as the first school, if you want to call it that. 94 pupils packed into Mariah Vestry. And that is the garage at the back of the house that is now a private house. Basically, there's still that feature, the back of Mariah Chapel in Ann Street. In 1889, the Cilfynydd primary school opens, and about 1,000 pupils were there by 1900. And that's timely because of course it's closing this year, which is sadness because I loved Cilfynydd Primary School. I genuinely did. I don't know why I loved school, but I did love it. Between 1885 and 1891, we had the 10 terrace streets built. And they were on Cilfynydd farmland. You mentioned Lloyd's earlier. They were the family Cilfynydd farm. That was one of the 5 farms. And most of that farmland, or at least half of it, a whole chunk of it went for those streets. And that was the farm that is, well, it's not there anymore. Below what is the tip, alongside what I call the new houses. But they're not new now, are they? But they're new houses to me. 10 terrace streets built, and then the 6 chapels churches established between 1887 and 1893. And I did a history walk 3 years ago. Some people came, some of you may have been, I don't know. And I went around the various streets. And interesting to see, you know, so many, well, they're not there now, it's only 2 functioning, of course. But it was so interesting to see how it's all changed so much to what I remember even in the 60s. In 1891, we now have 3,500 people. In 1891, so you can see how it's dramatically left. Dramatically left. And that's not dissimilar to today's population. It's not that far off, which is interesting. 1893, Cilfynydd Rugby Club formed. We've got our rugby club. 1894, the Workman's Hall. Miners' funds, £4,000. 1894. Of course, 1894, the explosion, the disaster itself. 290 died, and 118 pit ponies. Loving animals that I do, I'm not going to forget those. And then the miners' pay strike of 1898. Didn't last very long, but it was a miners' pay strike year. Clearly you had things like Tonopammy riots and all the rest of it in 1910, but that's a different thing entirely to this. In 1900, the village, which was now had been Islannisgai Didwg, is now Cilfynydd. Officially Cilfynydd. It was going to be Albion Town and various other things, but it had its name that we now know. 1900, the railway station connecting to the TVR, Taff-Vale Railway, which had been set up in 1841. There was a railway station at the bottom of Cross Street, to have a Cilfynydd station. And that was to bring, for the colliers, to the Albion Colliery, in effect. 5 pubs and clubs, numerous shops, village police station, population now 4,500 in 1901, 9 chapels and churches by 1903. So you can see the explosion of this is tremendous. It was now a busy place. It had had its tragedy, but it was a busy place. So at this stage, I've written a little slide here. Pause for a moment, remember, 1890s, typhoid fever and other diseases were quite widespread. And families spoke of dreading hearing the boom boom of frequent pit explosions in the neighbourhood. The reason I put that up there is that, I think about 3 months ago, I'm treasurer of Pontypridd Historical Society, and I look after their website and all this stuff. And I had a message from a lady in America who had, her grandmother had written her diary effectively, published it in America. Her diary, she grew up in Treforest, and she'd written it, and it was basically covering Pontypridd and so on and so forth. And she was interested in whether it would be of interest to us. Well, you know, to ask me that is silly, really. So, of course it is. But I'm not coming to New York, or I wouldn't go there. New York. Don't like all those buildings. Anyway, cut the long story short, she was coming over here, coming over for a few days, well, a couple of weeks, with, you know, back in March, I think it was. So I met her, cut the long story, I met her in the Gato Lounge. I ventured into somewhere posh like the Gato Lounge. And I was there with her for a lovely hour and a half, with her and her husband and sister-in-law or whatever. And she handed me this book. But the point in it was that it literally said that there was lots of diseases going on, and that her gran had said, you know, they were terrified at the booms and the explosions. There were lots of small disasters with 6 people killed, 10 people killed, so many injured. It was happening, you know, frequently. Which is why I put this in. But it had a very personal resonance, and I got that sitting on my shelf at home with all the other claptrap I got. We're still going on here. In 1905, Oakland's Terrace was built after the main streets. 2,589 employed in 1908. Then, of course, the tornado, which was quite like an event in itself, 1913. Came up the Taff Valley, not very wide, but, you know, 250-mile-an-hour winds or whatever it was, something ridiculous. The canal breach closed the canal at Cilfynydd in 1915. So the canal never went beyond Cilfynydd north after 1915. In 1950s, thereabouts, Cronfa and Anton Mynydd built. I think it's early 50s, that I call the new houses. And the canal closed completely in 1951. And then we've had other houses since 1970s. Silver Hill, Bryn, you know, Bryn Redding, and so on. A bit about transport now. I'll give you a break in a minute, you can listen to some music, but bear with me. Horse-drawn coach takes 2 hours, was taking 2 hours Merthyr to Cardiff. The canal boat took 2 days, but remember it was taking a lot more stuff. So although it was 2 days, the Cilfynydd Inn was the overnight stop off for a lot of these halfway between Merthyr and Cardiff. We had a water pond play until the horse-drawn break started around about 1900. Tram cars in 1905, trolley buses 1930, and diesel buses, motorised buses 1957. There are a lot of pictures in a minute. I'm sorry to bore you with lots of words, but there are pictures, there's music. For entertainment, and this is picking up a little bit on Spare Time that Alan just showed. Male voice choirs, still going strong and great, aren't they? Just fabulous. Church penny reading, solos, duets, quartets, choirs. Essays, plays, poems, recitations and speeches. The kind of things. Not laptops, not mobile phones, this kind of stuff. Workman's Hall Library Reading Room, the rugby team, football team, cricket team, jazz bands. The next bit I'm going to come into, a little bit of information for you. Early links to historic people. I tried to tie us in to some of the historic people that I can. Some of it's a bit more tenuous than other. Benjamin Hall, Lady Llanover, I'll talk about that in a minute. Dr. William Price, Gwenllian Llywelyn, and Oliver Cromwell. Benjamin Hall, Lady Llanover. Benjamin Hall became MP. He was part of Hall Abercarn estate, a large landowning estate in the early 19th century. He became MP, and I suppose the most famous thing of it, he was giving his name to Big Ben the clock of the Westminster Tower in House of Parliament. This guy was about 6'3" to 6'7", I'm not quite sure, but a big fellow for his time, because they weren't typically tall then. So he was a big man, hence Big Ben. So Big Ben, he became Big Ben. Not Big John, Big Ben. Benjamin Hall. And he married Lady Llanover, who was Augusta Waddington. And she was of the Waddington estate, Llanover estate, from, and I got her the book, the definitive book on her story, and it's cracking, from near Monmouth in Abergavenny. And she was a massive landowner. And when he married Lady Llanover, effectively Benjamin Hall became the landowner. Because in those days, the men just had the rights to these things, just the way it was. So the Llanover estate, which is where the Llanover Arms comes into it in Ponty, and it was all over this area, along with lots of others, Benjamin Hall and Lady Llanover, more importantly Lady Llanover, She was the real massive mover and shaker. She outlived him by a long period, and she was a huge mover and shaker. Ran several establishes, massive into Welshness, effectively created the Welsh lady's costume, the tall hat, the shawl that you see as traditional women's Welsh women's costume. Lady Landover, you can thank for that. The triple harpist, that was Lady Landover. An amazing lady. I'd suggest you read about her or research her on Google or whatever you want to do. Benjamin Hall, interesting in his own right. He owned the farmland that our family farm I told you about. It's the family farm of the family I'm part of since about 1850. But he owned the land with tenant people farming it, which was typically what happened then anyway. So there's a link there if you want. But they had Landover, and the Landover Arms is a link now, isn't it? Still going strong at a real pub. Dr. William Price, Gwenllian and Llywelyn. Dr. William Price, another amazing story, amazing character, lived a long life. Not without his faults and eccentricities. Escaped to France twice, chased by people, brilliant surgeon, chartist, Druid, of course, arch-Druid, etc., etc. Gwenllian and Llywelyn was somebody born on Cilfynydd farm, Cilfynydd Uchel, the upper farm, just above us here. And her mum, grandmother, and their main servant died of typhoid fever when she was 12. And she went to live with family in, I think it was St Mellons, with her aunt. And I think then her dad died when she was 16. And at 16, she moved to another family member in Llanharan. And when she moved to Llanharan, she came into the clutches of this chap, Dr. Price. But Dr. Price was 81, and she was 18. And they had a kind of wedding, marriage, Druidic wedding. And she had 3 children in the next 5 years. The first of which was Iesu Grist and the cremation on the rocking stone, which you may know of, which caused a kerfuffle and all the rest of it. They had a second son who they also called Iesu Grist too, but they changed his name to Nicholas then afterwards. And then the third, a daughter, Penelope. She lived for quite a big age, Penelope. She lived into her 70s. Dr. Price, in fact, died about, I don't know, 88, 90, something like that. Anyway. But that's that one. Oliver Cromwell, only because, you know, at the time of the Civil War, 1865, when he became, we became a republic for 9 years, 11 years, whatever. He was on his travels through here, and he's reputed to have stayed at the farm I live in. And I think he's reputed to have stayed almost everywhere. So make what you will of that, but I just chucked him in there for that. Anyway, this is Benjamin Hall. That's Big Ben. And that is Lady Landover. And as I say, a great read, a great story. There's her Welsh costume. You don't want to thank her for. She's obviously a huge influential character. Now you won't recognise who that is. Grab a glass of water. You won't recognise who he is, but Dr. William Price. I forgot to mention, of course, he studied medicine quite significantly, genuine surgeon and all those kinds of things in his younger days. That's Gwenllian and Llywelyn. Not a great picture, but these are very old, and I'm sorry they're not the sharp. That's Gwenllian and Llywelyn. And that's the traditional Dr. Price type thing that we are more familiar with. He became quite eccentric, Druidic in his later years. But he was a wild man, obviously. Clever, but wild. And that's Oliver Cromwell. Right. Bit of transport. That's an electric tram car, number 13, Cilfynydd, 1912. Now, jumping around a bit here, this is Cilfynydd Farm, Lloyd's Cilfynydd Farm, just to show you where the land is Cilfynydd built on. That's the reservoir, which basically is the water for the village. Cilfynydd Inn, of course. It's a shame that's not been kept to my mind, but there you are. Excuse me. Those are the houses on Richard Street, which I mentioned by the health centre. It's no longer there. That's an Elwyn Owen picture. The chemist, because I'm in touch with Ria and his daughter on various things, and they sent me that as a picture, I think. Very well done. These are the houses, numbers 1 to 4, opposite the Trojan garage. Not there now.
1 to 3.
1 to 3, is it? Because it starts at 4 or 5 the other end of the village, doesn't it? So there's the house at the opposite side, as you go up to Cilfynydd on the south end. Auckland's Terrace, 1905, that was built. As an early Ann Street, early 1900. Mariah Chapel.
Yeah.
The school, of course. Another view of the school. And there's some school staff. I just grabbed that one there. There's another one of school staff a bit later on.
The 3 schools are there. The infants was in the middle. The boys' school was near the hill. And the girls' school near Ann Street. And they were both added to at the beginning of the 20th century. The school population, if you count all those teachers, you'll work out that the school population was just over 1,000. It's unbelievable.
Okay, so that's another. Now this is the bit where I'm going to run through several slides of the colliery and there's background music to it, so you'll be giving you a break from me. Okay?
In our little valley, and if they must take the blame, the price of coal's the same. The pit advance, it's a supermarket now.
It's a little break for you, as I say. That gives you a potted view, I suppose, of that. And I like that tune of Max. I think it sums things up. The last drum. And now we got some pictures from the tornado. So 1913. So I'm jumping back in time then. Tornado damage in the village. The co-op lost its roof. I put this in to indicate this is in 1916, I think. The Ladies' Red Cross. This is First World War, and part women play an important part in so many things. And when you think how they had to deal with things in the way they did in those days, it seems so unfair. But a tremendous role there. The Cricket Club of 1913. And I got some pictures in, basically of Richard Street mainly, early 1910, 1920, that kind of period. I think this is...
Can you go back to that?
Yes, certainly,
picture?
yeah. Certainly.
What's missing?
Cars.
Yeah. No electricity. Start early.
It's just imagining what it's like then, you know, compared to what we see now. When you say it's difficult and they haven't got this, and they haven't got a signal, they can't find Google, and they can't find it just flies my head, to be honest.
The Edward's shop, was it originally built with two stories?
No, it was added on.
I see, so the draper's shop in the last.
Ian Edwards Outfitters. 2 entrances, one for his sister, she operated the ladies section and the babies, and he had the one above for the gentleman. 2 entrances.
1920s, I imagine this, isn't it? I would imagine this.
I think this was the 1920s, yes.
Yeah, this is very much the Depression era.
The shop in front of you is J.O. Jones, ladies, fashions and milliners.
Are they another one similar time scale?
No on that one, Ian Edwards is done. So he was added.
Looking back down the street, of course. Yeah. Military Street was the Oxford Street of Cilfynydd, wasn't it? With all the shops.
This is the bottom end of Cross Street, and there was an entrance taking a walkway over the top of the canal and down to the station. And if you look at the stonework, you can see exactly where it was and where it was filled in, even today. Yeah.
The baths. Just a very early picture of the baths, but we'll see another one in a little while. Obviously this was where people went swimming, and
Yes.
in the summertime it was packed and all that.
Yeah.
It was the Lido, long before the Lido came in the park. We had our own Lido. Welfare ground, very much the playground for Cilfynydd.
Yes.
But rugby team, I think this one, and the football team, just to balance it up with the cricket team. We had all these sports teams. Now we're coming into the 50s and 60s. 50s and 60s is the era that I know best. I still kind of live there. I don't remember the rationing bit, but it continued to 54. The post-war baby boom. So many people were born in the 50s, 60s. Increased emphasis on self-sufficiency and the mechanization of farming. I know that for myself because we had the first tractors on the farms up with us. And we came there in 1952, and by 1959 my father ploughed the entire farm, and he was so chuffed with that. Ploughed all the fields in those 7 years, and they were fern and overgrown and so forth. Maiden aunt had lived there for some years before, but he ploughed the entire thing in 7 years. And of course it was all about self-produce, post-war, grow your own, do your own. A whole new resolution going on in the country. Completely different. The Macleay's government came in instead of Churchill's, and it was all about those kinds of things. And yeah, if you want to, you can do things. Half the time people don't want to, I guess. But what did we have? Well, a few cars, no computers, few phones, telephone boxes in the streets, coal fires outside toilets, the Albion colony we talked about. Not everyone had TVs, no colour TVs. Street deliveries, pot, bread, vegetables and milk. There were 3 milkmen, one of which was my father. There was Des, Johnny Boyce and my father.
And the cooperative?
On a cooperative, so it's 4 days. I showed a cooperative milk floating in a little baker's man. Summer days at home, obviously they were important.
Yeah.
Very much, they were the days out. It wasn't bed at all, it was Cilfynydd the Lido. Smoking commonplace, busy chapels, churches, Sunday schools, Christmas carol services. busy pubs, clubs, many women sit at home, cooking, cleaning, sewing and knitting. And other things, I'm sure, but basically, most women go home. Mail letter post boxes, public transport, 7 chapels, 18 shops, cooperative store, 14 other shops, 6 pubs and clubs, 2 garages and 1 classes. So lots going on. Lots of stuff. A busy place. We get virtually everything in Cilfynydd. Right, primary school nature walks. I do slightly deviate at this point, only to say that one of my mother's greatest prides, greatest enjoyment, I suppose, lived on the farm, was when the primary school kids came, and they always had to come in and have pop and Welsh games for my mother. And she loved seeing the school class coming up. She absolutely loved it, and the kids did too. I don't even think they do them anymore. It's probably health and safety or something. But they were a frequent thing in the summertime. Bus convoys, Barryporth Call, Burgess Bakery, Roberts Bakery, Village Police Station, Doctor Surgery, Chemist, Pet Shop, 9 working farms. Yeah, I'm a farm guy myself. There were 9 farms actually working, small family farms, not big farms, all ploughing, growing, with cattle, with sheep, with pigs, you know, and so on. Busy places. You don't see it now. It's nothing like that now, which is a shame. There we are. I recall seeing miners, I do remember this, leaving the blackened faces, carrying tonic boxes and tea cans, and something I'm told would call them a coffee tavern and light a cigarette and match it up on the counter. I may or may not be right, apocryphal story, but I'm told that. But I certainly remember seeing them coming out, quite blackened, walking the lawn from the cottage. Cilfynydd, which was at the top there, this was Cilfynydd, smallest polling station in the UK, was. Local floods, December 1960, tremendous, as you know. I'll just do another little sidetrack for a minute. I didn't have electric till I was 17, but I watched the Wales Springboks game in Cardiff, lost 3-0, Keith Oxley dropped goal, in December 1960, in the police station with Sergeant Hugh, because he's a mate of my father's. Sergeant Hugh was the sergeant, and he said, "Mog, bring the boy down, you can watch a rugby here." And we watched the rugby with the police sergeant in the police station. Not bad, eh? I thought the police were marvellous, I thought they were marvellous people. And the day after, there were floods everywhere, weren't they? The Springboks couldn't get up the Angel Hotel. Floods in Cardiff everywhere, Tree Harbour, it was devastating around Pontypridd. Awful, yeah. Shocking. So that's why that's relevant to me. The smallpox epidemic I mentioned in 1962, and of course the tragedy of 1966 in Aberfan. The legend of the White Lady of the Cwm, which, what intrigues me, I ran, you know, you come and think these are barking tales, they're silly tales, aren't they? But I've thought of so many people who I think are quite, you know, normal people, average people. And they say, yeah, I've seen it. Yeah. Oh, it's all frightening. Yeah, I've seen it. I spoke to somebody 2 weeks ago. I rang them up, I said, have I dreamt it? Can I dream something? I said, have I dreamt it? Oh, did you see the White Lady? Yeah, I definitely saw the White Lady. It was great, yeah. It was a legend of the White Lady.
Nothing to do with the rugby club.
Right, 50, 60 children's games. I mean, these is just to battle things off. Hopscotch, spinning tops, golden Indians, hula hoop sticks, fishing and picnics at the creek, walks to Harriswell, picking nuts, blackberries. These are things that the kids do. Nearly all outdoor stuff. They're either indoors now or walking around with their phone. That's my head. Rope swings, dens in the woods, sliding down Oaklands or Coldfish, Dutch arrows, bowlies, riding bikes or scooters. Gambo sleighs, marbles, conkers, gats, slingshots, Cathy and Dolly. Not an exhaustive list, but pretty good, I would have thought. And good fun. Football in the street, captains, rounders, hide and seek, kit-off club. Other things, jazz bands, Cubs and Scouts, Brownies and Guides, Bertram Mills Circus and Dante's Easter Fun Fair. Those were the two big things in Ponty that I remember. With the Bertram Mills Circus, with the real animals, elephants and lions and tigers, and Dante's Easter Fun Fair.
And the best thing you had was Brownies and Guides. That's all you are over there.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, you know, they're still going these things, some of them, but unfortunately a lot of this is dropping by the wayside. So here we are, that's just an illustration of some of it, this is all this is. We didn't dress up like that. And I think we used sticks for guns, wasn't we? And we used to have those cap guns, which I thought were rows of caps, and bang, bang, bang. And sometimes we had these, on the string, they had like a plug on the end, like a pop guns. Oh, they were great, weren't they?
Spud guns as well.
Water pistols, spud guns.
Yeah.
That's Dick Stone. Play Dick Stone. Toss, I think, five bits of stone on top. See how many you got on your back of your hand or something. Marbles. Love playing marbles. These are not allowed anymore, I don't think. In Cilfynydd Primary, you used to play in the guttering alongside the wall.
That's right.
I remember. I mean, the big steel ball sheets you like, didn't you? Get one of them. Great. Conkers, again. Underneath the chestnut trees, getting all these conkers. I dip them in vinegar and stuff to make them hard and wreck everybody else's. And what did the adults get up to? Well, cards, darts, billiards, snooker, pool, choral singing, chaps, churches, various sports, pigeon racing and allotments, drama, bingo, pubs, dancing and shows. Right, so that's covered the activities, largely, I think. And I just literally listed some notable people. Now, notable in the sense that they are, to varying degrees, fairly famous and well known. To me, the notable people I remember were probably the retailers, the shops and so forth that were here, and the characters. Goodness me, there were characters. But I'd be here all night. The village had great characters, as most villages do. But these are people we knew, so Sir Gareth Evans, Stuart Burrows, both William Street. Tremendous singers. Gareth Wood, the musician, Howard Jones from Howell Street, Billy Wilde, entrepreneur.
Gareth was from Mary Street.
Sorry?
Gareth Wood, Mary Street.
Gareth Wood, Mary Street, yeah. Howard Jones, Howell Street. Yes. Then I've got others, Merlin Rees, Labour Home Secretary, Henry Peck. And then some rugby people, Yori Isaac, Marvin James, Glenn Davis, Kevin. Di Dower, boxer. One of the great names when I was a little kid, Di Dower, the boxer locally. It will foster the next one, I came on, all that kind of happened.
Yeah.
Right. And then you had Brimore Jones, counsellor. His daughter was in my class in school. Ian, I think, wherever Ian is, you showed me earlier, in a picture. That was his daughter. Dean Powell. Now, I dealt with Dean a lot. Passed away a couple of years ago. I've written quite a few of the publications that some of this comes from. Great chap. Great with the choirs and historian and writer and so on. But his father was Don. Killed many people. Dr. Gareth Owen. His mother ran the fish chip shop, I believe.
Fish shop, she did, yes.
And he became principal of Aberystwyth. And Elwyn Owen is another.
My brother, yes.
And there's many more too numerous to mention, but I just picked up some people of note, you know. But as I say, there's so many characters, it's just tremendous. Right, so here's just a picture again, not sure, about 50s time, 60s, maybe 50s. Workman's Hall, looking onto Richard Street. And there's I think that's probably the 50s, and that's Gerald Kings. people came over from Ireland and caused a stir and had his garage. This is 1957, one of the last trolley buses. Obviously at the top of the terminus up there. That's very much one of the last trolley buses. And there's it again. Now this picture's appeared in several talks I've done, and you've seen it how many times. Brenda's not here tonight, as it happens, but I love this picture, and the reason I love it is that these are Cilfynydd children, most of whom I know, and that was the daily way back and forth to school over the coal tip. Cilfynydd is that away, past the coal, and it'd be over the coal tip. To school in the morning and obviously home in the evening. And this was taken by 1955, and the point is that incline that was taking the coal drams was functioning at the time, with the big steel ropes that leap up in the air when it got taut. And it was dangerous, obviously. Dragging these the coal drams would be full going up and empty coming down, of course. And we were always told, be very careful and watch for the drams, and I used to do it quite regularly, and watch, I lived up on the farm there, and watch the rope, you know, and all this business. And Gary Goff, I know, lost his leg under the coal drum up there.
Yeah.
So that's the reason that's there. There was a campaign to have the children have some transport for school, because there was about 20 children living up there. There's 8 houses, I think. Cilfynydd Hamlet, which is the smallest polling station I mentioned. And we ended up having transport from the farmer across the way out the contract. And that was taken by, I think, the Observer or the local press as a publicity photo to illustrate. Otherwise, we'd never have had a camera. We didn't know what a camera was, I didn't anyway. But that was 1955, and I know most, well, pretty much all of those. And I love the picture, because it says so much, tells you so much, of getting back and forth to school every day. And you're looking after younger ones and so forth. And people fuss about today. There you go. This is 1959, and this is the baths that Cilfynydd Lido, as I mentioned earlier. And it's packed out on the banks, picnics and all the rest, and loads of people learn to swim in there, and so on. 7 foot deep at the end. This is
Tony Carini.
Tony Carini. Carini's Cafe was, of course, in Richard Street, where the pizza place is now. I remember Maria there. Tony passed away before Maria. But Tony used to take his ice cream cart up to the Cwm in the 50s on nice weather, so I understand. I don't remember him doing it, but he certainly did. And Carini's were, you know, huge in Cilfynydd, as with so many Italian families with cafes and so forth. And that was Tony Carini, as you say.
Didn't his father die on the sent to the prisoner of war to Canada? Yeah, he told me to his father.
Right. All right.
You've got a grave shot up in the grave, and there's a picture of it. And I think he was going to the man. I think that was it.
Yeah, he sent to the prisoner of war.
And the German
Tony's father.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it was his brother.
No, it was his father.
His father.
But a tremendous family of the village.
Arundel Star?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now this was the fish shop that's Hopper William Street, and I remember Rena very well. This is Rena Sidoli. I was given, this picture's come from John Sidoli, who I'm friends with, his son. I'm still friends with John. And I used to love going there. That was the fish shop of the village, top of William Street. And it was another Italian family that was so central to, if you like, the youngsters gathering in the evening, either Carini's or Rena's.
Wasn't Rena sister to Tony?
Possibly, yes. I think you might be right. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask John. I'm not sure, to be honest. This is the one I mentioned earlier, the staff of Cilfynydd School. This was 1961, the retirement of Miss Abraham. That is, I believe. Or Mrs. Cumming, one or the other. Mrs. Cummings, is it? But
The lady who is retiring is Beatrice Abram,
Oh, right.
number 2 Wood Street.
There we are.
And she was one of the din ladies. The boss of the din ladies is between the two. And that's Mrs. Cummings there.
Is Mike Evans on the right now?
Yes,
Bill Hargis.
Bill Hargis and Llewellyn Evans.
What the book?
Edward, sorry. Yeah.
The reason, quite a few of them are teachers.
Darby Davis,
Teachers I knew.
Tom Morgan,
Tom Morgan.
Janet Jenkins. There, that one here. It's Bill, yeah. Yeah.
I'm not quite sure it's my name.
Yeah.
Most of those are teachers I had. That's why I put it there, I guess, really. But that was retirement, but what did I do? 1961. Now we're into the diesel buses. This is, I think, you must have known it. There's your cooperative. I think it's doing bread, that one is. But it's cooperative. Now she's coming up towards the 50s, 60s, and that's just some pictures I got of the butchers,
Yeah.
which were there about 100 years, basically. That's how we know is chemists.
Yeah.
And we're coming towards the end now, you'd be glad to know. This one has got a musical backdrop to it again. And I think I'd like if you could just listen to this one as we watch it. This is a picture of, obviously, the tip of it here. And it's a Max Boyce song, again. And it's the one that he regards as his favourite song he wrote. He wrote at all. And I think it's a nice one, and it probably bookends it. There's a few at the end, but we're almost there, you'll be glad to know.
And I don't know, you can see the haulage engine house, just at the top of it.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
The haulage, yeah, right there,
Yeah. I remember looking for sheep over there many a time, back in the day, and it was just me and the sheepdog, and now it's quad bikes. Didn't take a tractor there, just a sheepdog and me, because it couldn't take a Furby up there, really. But quad bikes use them. The Stevens, Ben Stevens, I know quite well, on quad bikes, with the dog sitting on the back. They got it made. Anyway. I just think that was a cracking one as a sort of bookend, if you like, to the. But I know it's not Rhondda, we're not Rhondda, but it gets the picture across. It's pretty similar, I think. So I hope you've enjoyed looking through Cilfynydd's history. I've tried to pick up the main bits for you as best I can. And I think we must never forget resilience, being shown that they've gone before us, people have gone before us. They've had a lot of hardships, and I don't think we should be complaining quite as much as we are. A positive outlook achieves a lot. My goodness me, what they went through and achieved, I'm just so impressed. Infant mortality is another thing which we haven't touched on. Just such hardships. And you didn't hear about it from my parents, grandparents. I used to chat to them a lot, my grandparents, and they didn't tell you difficulties like this. Just got on with life, didn't they? Same from people in wartime. So really, I had a bit of a rallying call, I guess. I was going to stick some music on as a rallying call, because that's a bit of a... But I haven't got that. I just think a new identity, determination, to toil to create Cilfynydd in the first place. That's what we need to do. It's a commuter land, yes, but let's make sure it thrives, and it is well capable of thriving, I've no doubt. Okay, why is this here? Well, I'm pretty sad in many ways. I do look at poetry and read a lot of stuff. I like to gather information from anywhere, anytime. Every day is a school day when you know so little as I do. And this is with Lord Tennyson. I come from haunts of Coot and Hidden. I make a sudden sally and sparkle out among the fern to pick up down the valley. The message behind this is quite simply that when you're looking at, this is a mountain stream, and mountain streams, I live among them. And water just comes from the top, it runs down to the bottom. And that's what it's saying. But what it's actually saying is, in that journey, it's having to meander and break its way through all sorts of things. There's stones, there's banks, there's dips, there's ups and downs, it's all over the shop. And eventually it breaks out into the light, and eventually it finds its way to the sea. It gets there in the end, is the message. It's a very clear message in Alfred Lord Tennyson's The Brook poem. And that's why it's there. So, you know, don't let's be hung up on the stones and the hurdles and the bends in the road. We've got to get to that at the end. That's what I'm trying to message there. Sorry about that. That's another rallying call. But generally, you know, making sure that the village ticks over and succeeds in future as it has through the past. But that's it for me. Thank you very much.